Hello everyone, my name is Zach and welcome to On Cash Flow, where I help you become a master of your own cash flow. Now let's get started. I'm here to tell you that you don't necessarily need $1 million or more in order to become financially independent, in order to retire early. And I am a textbook example of that. I certainly didn't need $1 million in order to retire early, and you probably don't either. So here's a scenario I want to offer to you. I'm going to offer to you, instead of $1 million, I'm going to offer to you a scenario of becoming financially independent on $750,000. So if you have a net worth or investments of $750,000 and you are going to be using just a general rule of thumb of 4% safe withdrawal rule, then you're going to multiply $750,000 by 4%, and that should give you $30,000 per year. So this is your annual spending, $30,000. And then if you average that out over 12 months, that's about $2,500 per month. So this is the scenario I'm going to be working with. And I'm going to give you some hypothetical examples of how or where you can retire early, you can become financially independent on $750,000 rather than waiting until you become a millionaire. Indeed, it is very possible. So here are some of the most common ways that I think that you can achieve financial independence on less than $1 million. The very first one is the scenario that I took. This is the path that I took, and that is retiring to a low cost of living area and like a low cost of living, state, like a low tax state, a low cost of living state, a low cost of living area. And this is probably one of the easiest and most accessible ways that a lot of us can retire early. Usually this involves moving to a tax that has a low income tax or a low total tax burden, and it also involves typically not moving to a very big city. It doesn't mean you can't live in a city and you just have to live out in the middle of nowhere, but it's usually going to involve not living in a mega city. You're probably not going to be living in a city with 1 million plus people if you're looking to use this method to retire early. But the great thing about this particular method is that it is, I think, possible in literally almost every single state. If I had to say one state it's not possible, and it's probably the state of Hawaii. It's probably not going to be possible in the state of Hawaii to do this. It might be, but you're probably not going to have a very high quality of living because it is extremely expensive to live in the state of Hawaii. But I actually honestly think that in every single other US states that you can probably make this happen. Now, it doesn't mean that all of those states are going to be low taxes, but if you're living on such a low income, most of those states are going to be very low in income taxes for you. You're probably going to have a pretty low tax burden. And yes, even in the highest marginal tax state of California, you can live and you can find very low cost of living areas in California. Okay, it's not going to be all up along the coast, but you can definitely find low cost of living areas in every single state where you could make this $30,000 per year possible. And plenty of people do it, and plenty of people have less resources than you would having $750,000 of investments. I chose to do this option when I moved to Eastern Tennessee because it's a low cost of living area, and Tennessee itself is a very low tax state with no income tax but a higher sales tax, but your total tax burden in the state of Tennessee is very low. So that was my choice, but you can pretty much make this work in every single state. You can find a low cost of living area. The next option that you could pursue if you're looking to live on $750,000 is that you could utilize overseas arbitrage. And basically what this means is moving to a country, or mainly staying in countries that have a low cost of living relative to the US dollar. A lot of other countries, they don't use the US dollar because they're not the United States, and therefore they might have a currency that is considered weaker than the US dollar. And you can use that to your advantage. Not only do they might have a currency that's a little bit weaker than the US dollar, but they might actually have a dramatically lower cost of living overall for a higher quality of lifestyle. So there are many countries, just take your pick, that you can move to, and you can find ways to live a really good life on 2,500 USD per month. Obviously, you're probably not going to be able to move to Western Europe or most parts of Western Europe, or you're probably not going to be able to move to maybe even Canada or something like that, whereas it's actually still a high cost of living just like it is in the United States. But take a look at this really cool map where it actually shows like average cost of living around the globe. You can see the different colors in contrast to the average cost of living, and you can see that there's a lot of places in like Central, South America, and Southeast Asia that have very, very low cost of living that you could make 2,500 USD per month stretch very, very far and have a pretty good lifestyle there. But did you know that there is another thing that you don't even need $1 million in order to do, and that is to hit the like button on this video? Okay, you definitely don't need anywhere near $1 million to hit the like button on this video. If you're enjoying this video so far, please make sure you hit that like button. Give it a thumbs up. It really does help me out, and I would really appreciate that. But let's get on to the next one. And the next scenario is that if you actually do want to live in a relatively large city within the United States, don't worry about it. You can still make it happen. But this is how I think that you could make it happen if you chose to live that, big city life. Now, you might not be able to live in downtown Manhattan in New York City. I hear that's pretty expensive. You might not be able to live in downtown San Francisco. So there are some areas where this might not work. But if you want to live in a bigger city, that's okay. You can still make this happen. And the way that I think that you can make it happen if you want to live in that big city is to live, close to the city center, close to all the things that you're going to need, but actually go carless. If you go carless, you can drastically reduce your overall fixed expenses, and you can allocate more of those fixed expenses towards the higher cost of living when it comes to like housing, because that's probably one of the biggest differences that you're going to face if you're living in a large city, and that is probably going to be cost of housing. The cost to rent an apartment is probably going to be a lot more in a city with 5 million people than it is going to be in a city with 50,000 people, 100,000 people. That's just how things work. More people, more prices, higher prices, I should say. But seriously, the average cost to own a car is pretty darn high. And if you want to choose to live in the city and you go carless instead, you can make $2,500 a month work in many of the major cities within the United States. So I actually did an example video where I actually literally showed you my exact math of how much it costs to own my car. And I own a very low cost used 2011 Toyota Prius. And still, the cost to own that car up to that point was actually still pretty high. And that's a really low cost vehicle. So by not having a car and you're living in a big city where you have all your stuff really close by, you can make this work. You can make the $30,000 work. You can make it work on less than $1 million. And then I want to offer you another scenario that is probably maybe the best of both worlds. And that is the financial independence of Barista FIRE. You don't have to be a barista. What it actually means is still just working part-time and designing your schedule, still having a lot more flexibility, but still finding passion and value in the work that you do. And that's because you are still working part-time, but while also freeing up a lot more time for yourself. Barista FIRE, I think, can be one of the best of both worlds, okay? While you're technically not retired by the standard definition of where you cease working forever, who cares? Who cares what the standard definition is? If you can find work that is, part-time, flexible, that fits your schedule, that you want to do, that you find enjoyment in, and you earn a little bit of extra money on the side, then why would you not do that? Why would you not pursue something that's going to bring you that fulfillment, that's going to bring you that joy, that's going to give you a purpose? So if you have that example scenario of $750,000, that means that you can produce about $2,500 per month for yourself. Then what if you just worked part-time on a very part-time basis and you only earned an extra $1,000 per month, an extra $12,000 per year? So if you stack that on top of your $1,000 per year withdrawals, that means that you have $30,000 plus $12,000, so that's $42,000 per year. In this case, you could probably live, in a larger city and have a car, or you can move to a low-cost living area, or you can move overseas. So the options are endless. You can do all of these things. And because you are Barista FIRE, which I think is one of the best ways to become financially independent, especially if you're still on the younger side and you're still able to work and you still want to work and you still kind of want to feel like you're contributing to society, there's no problem with that. And that's why I think that Barista FIRE is one of the best options, especially if you're close to my age, if you're in your late 20s, if you're in your 30s, your 40s, even in your 50s. I think that Barista FIRE is one of the best options for retiring in under $1 million while still having a really high quality of life. I want to know from you in the comments below. Okay, I've got the big question here for you. I want to know how much you plan on retiring with. What is your basically FIRE number? When do you plan to retire? Is there a number that you have in mind? Is there a general range that you have in mind? Please discuss it with me in the comments below. I'm really curious to know. And then after you're done leaving that comment below, don't leave just yet. I'll have another video for you that I think you'll definitely enjoy, especially if you're still new to this whole financial independence thing, especially if you're still new to this early retirement thing. And that is my full guide to getting started on the path to financial independence. If you have not watched my full guide on that, you definitely need to watch that video, okay? So it's gonna pop up right next to me. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm Zach from uncashflow.com, and I hope to see you next time.